Most of you are starting to see that your planarians have completely regenerated. So it's time to think about writing your conclusion. So let's just make the point that all of the written observations and sketches that you guys have done over the last 10 days or so are considered your data for this activity. So really there's not a lot of number data unless you were able to somehow measure size, which was difficult to do. But you've got a lot of descriptive data. You've written and sketched the cells as they have come back and described the rate of that process. So those are the things that you're going to need to draw on as you construct a conclusion. So some other questions to think about. How many days has it taken for your worm to regenerate? Remember, this is really what's going to formulate your claim in your conclusion. Do you think that there was an impact on this number of days by how big your worm was to start with? If you cut it into 3 pieces, your answer is probably going to be different than someone who cut it into 2. And think about why that is, or explain why that is in your writing. And then again, what data have you collected that you can draw on to answer that question and to convince others of your findings? Part of writing a good conclusion is being thorough and showing somebody else who didn't perform the lab that your answer is right and true. So if I was going to reference this page as evidence of planaria regeneration, and this is going to be unique to what you guys wrote, I would be looking at describing the progression of growth. Here I'm looking at just the tail end, but over the course of days. And for instance, I would say like on day 3, there was very little evidence of growth, but some, right, which you can notice by the tiny amount of cells at that anterior end. I would again describe what's happening on the other observations, noting that my planaria was adding more cells, and I might talk about how those cells get added, right? You guys learned some words like mitosis and asexual reproduction that would be the scientific principle that would explain how that regrowth happened. So that's the kind of data I'm looking for you to cite or reference when you're writing your conclusion. Before you go on to the last page of your lab and answer all the concluding questions, you might want to check out this website. And I linked this in the Canvas post. This is an exploratorium site, and there's some good reading here. Of course, the text over here, and there's some video clips. And there's a researcher scientist who studies planaria who basically narrates what happens when a planaria regenerates. So that would probably help you a lot in trying to answer those questions on the last page. So the last thing to do would be to make sure that all of these questions are answered. You can definitely consult your notes and other things that you've done and learned along the way. I would like you to try to write these in complete sentences, especially down here where we asked you to write a conclusion using claim evidence reasoning. So you're ultimately trying to answer this question: how long did it take for your planaria to regenerate? And if yours died before it was regenerated, cite the video or the other evidence in the beginning of this mix to answer that question. Provide evidence from your data table. It would be great to cite your own data, but again, if yours died, then cite the data from the drawings that are in this mix. And then use reasoning to explain, like use the scientific principles and processes you've learned about to explain how the planaria worm can do this. Here's some other reminders about writing claim, evidence, reasoning, conclusions, or explanations. You might want to read over this and just make sure you're doing all of these things. Once all of these questions are answered, you should turn this paper in. Your planaria should go in the classroom jar. Petri dishes can go in the garbage.